This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America for this Wednesday morning. I'm Seth Merrill. Thanks for joining me. Coming up a little later on the program, Jeremy Plonk from HorsePlayerNow.com. He's a regular with us on Wednesday. Usually talk a little bit about some of the stakes action, looking back and looking forward. That's going to be the game plan today. Touch on some of the stakes action from this past weekend. Also look forward to some of the stakes action coming up. And a little after the bottom of the hour, James Hasty, who is the director now of the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. That's the organization that's been in existence, a couple of years now, maybe, founded. And the game plan is to put, of course, a second career, or not even necessarily second career. I think some of it is second career, but some of these horses they're taking care of are older. They're even beyond their second careers. But it's providing aftercare for off-the-track thoroughbreds. And we're just going to talk a little bit about that. Last week they listed the 20 new facilities that have been accredited by their organization. My partner here on the handicapping report a couple of days a week, Jeff Carl, one of the guys who go out now and inspect some of these places. But they listed the 20 facilities. Most recent additions to the TAA. Last week, today out in Arizona, Arizona Symposium of Racing is being held this week, and the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance has a little announcement coming up later this morning about the grant money they're sending out to some of these. So again, we'll just get a little overview on the organization from James Hasty. Before we get to some of the news, just do want to touch on some of the promos here, both at the Clubhouse Racebook and via the website. Just want to mention again, Lucky Saturdays. I want to keep pushing that because, as I say, I'm tempted to come down on Saturday just to watch the Lucky Saturday promotion. Next 3 Saturdays, December 14th, 21st, and 28th. Come on down. You can submit an entry for random drawings. The random drawings will be held at 1, 2, and 3 p.m. And again, next 3 Saturdays. If a couple of folks will be selected at each drawing. The first person picked gets into either the cash cube or spins the big wheel. Cash cube, if you step into the cash cube money machine, you have 20 seconds to grab as much funny money as possible. That's all totaled up then, and you receive a win, place, or show bet for that amount on the next race at Aqueduct. And I've said, I just want to come down and see somebody in the cash cube grabbing money for 20 seconds. So that's one patron. The other patron gets to spin the big wheel. There are different items on there, racing merchandise, bet vouchers, or whatnot. Lucky Saturday. Sounds like fun down here. Next 3 Saturdays, Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Make sure to stop on, as I say, even if you don't get selected, I think it's going to be fun watching people grabbing money in the cash cube. Bet 50, Get 50 continues this month. If you don't have a Capital Bets wagering account, sign up this month. As soon as you bet your first $50, Capital OTB plunks another $50 into your account. Free money there. CapitalOTB.com for some more information. That also will then lead you to the new betting site we've been talking about here for a couple of months now, I guess. CapitalOTBBet.com, CapitalOTBBet.com, the new wagering site. A lot of bells and whistles there. It's a great site. Certainly you can watch all the races, pull up replays, all the, as I say, the appropriate bells and whistles. And there you see, state of the art, it certainly is. Not only, and you can see by that picture there, you get a little flavor of it. You got your one track that is the main screen, and then you have 4 little active icons underneath. So you can kind of monitor 5 tracks at a time very, very easily. As I say, state of the art, and that is available to everybody with a Capital Bets wagering account. Also coming up down here at the Clubhouse Racebook, a couple other events I wanted to mention. Sunday, December 15th, this coming Sunday, $500 bankroll with my Loose on the Lead co-host Steve Bick. That'll be happening from 12:30 to 4:30. They'll be selecting 25 lucky patrons to join in the bankroll this coming Sunday, right here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. A $500 bankroll with Steve Bick. Of course, he is the host of Sirius and XM's radio show At the Races. And do want to remind you, our next boxing event is coming up Monday, December 16th. This is part of 5 big nights of boxing that have been happening down here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get down, but the reports are they've been a lot of fun. They've been very well attended. Local boxing clubs, really entertaining. You can come down, $15 general admission, but you get a night of boxing down here. And as I say, by all reports, a lot of fun. Clubhouse Racebook in Albany, next night of boxing down here this coming Monday, December 16th. All right, that does bring us to some of the news and notes. Did want to touch on some of the stories that have come out recently that have been kind of interesting. You may want to check out Gary West's most recent column on ESPN.com. Talks about December being a big month for the 2-year-olds. Talks a little bit about, it looks like, out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, New Year's Day probably being the champion, because as Gary West says, won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, quoting him, that seems to be all that matters to some voters. I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of folks shut down after the Breeders' Cup. Gary West, though, says if Shared Belief wins the Cash Call Futurity impressively, he should be named the champion juvenile 2013. We'll talk a little bit about that with Jeremy Plonk as well. It's going to be kind of interesting because really, it would be tough for me to pull the trigger on Shared Belief. The record certainly, you win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, you get some extra points for that, but the record just doesn't seem like a championship type record that jumps off the page. I've said this before on the show since the Breeders' Cup. So for me, it's a little tough of a call. Honor Code to me is maybe more interesting. We talked yesterday, maybe a couple of days ago on the Handicappers Report with Anthony Mormino, and he was saying, is that grade 2 Remsen going to be enough? Particularly the way it was run. And I would agree. For me, Honor Code maybe gets an edge. As I say, it's going to depend on how voters look at the award. And if you're just looking at who's the best 2-year-old, I think you can make a pretty strong case for Honor Code. I think he ran against it in the Remsen. He was up on the pace. That comeback in the stretch, I thought those were all nice. But as Gary West says, Honor Code is another who at this point could deserve the title, but then he goes on to talk about how quirky the Remsen was. Says the Remsen will have to remain an enigma for a while simply because it was so slow. And I love this line. Gary West then, quote, talking about how quirky the Remsen was, quote, it was run like a turf race or a sermon. And there's no question, it was slow. I love that description. Gary West then goes on to say, I wouldn't argue against a vote for any of the 4. New Year's Day, Havana, Strong Mandate, and Honor Code. But the Hollywood Futurity could present an opportunity for Shared Belief. So we'll have to keep our eyes this weekend out at Hollywood Park and see what does happen vis-a-vis Shared Belief in the Hollywood Futurity. Also, this was a story that really came out last week, December 4th, it's dated, on harnessracing.com. This is kind of interesting, and I haven't heard any upshot. I haven't heard any result from the investigation, but the spokesman from the New York State Gaming Commission, Lee Park, talked to harnessracing.com, again, last week this was, about a race at Yonkers on Friday, November 29th. The race was won by 33-1 Fort Valley As, or Fort Valley A's, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, with 9-1 Elon finishing second. So it's a 33-1 over a 9-1. The exacta comes back $85. But more puzzling, just before they went into the gate, just before they got behind the gate, it was a harness race, obviously, just before they got behind the gate, the exacta, the will pays, the probable pays on the board were showing that exacta at $646. So again, just before the gate starts to roll and they let them away, you're looking up at the board. This is seconds before the race goes off. The exacta is paying $646. It winds up paying $85. The triple with a 15-1 shot third paid $5,700. So it was certainly a little bit of a head scratcher there. Again, November 29th. Down at Yonkers, and it seems like the Gaming Commission, according to what was quoted last week, again on harnessracing.com, is looking into it. I have not heard the upshot of that, but we'll certainly keep our ear to the ground and see if something comes up. Also notable, that battle down in Florida continues, and this weekend they were still head-to-head, Gulfstream and Calder. A couple of very nice days on Saturday for both of them. with Gulfstream hosting the Claiming Crown, and over at Calder there were 3 very nice stakes races. Chaba wins the Hooper, a couple of other nice stakes races as well. So a couple of big days where they went head to head. Well, Blood Horse looked up the handles both days, and Gulfstream for a total of 30 races over the 3 days, approximately 18.7 million their handle over that weekend. Calder's 3-day total. They had 5 less races, 25 races, approximately 2.8 million. 5 less races, but again, let me put those figures out there. Gulfstream handled almost 19 million. Calder handled almost 3 million. Pretty significant divergence. And I will also say I found it strange, my copy of the Racing Form, and again, it's different in different parts of the country, but being the Northeast, pretty significant betting population up here, I found it kind of interesting that Saturday's daily Racing Form included Gulfstream, but it did not include Calder. That was interesting. And that, I don't know how much that affects handle, but I think it has some effect when you can't find the past performances. It certainly makes you scratch your head a little bit why Saturday's daily Racing Form didn't include Calder, particularly because, again, it was a fairly nice day of racing down there at Calder. But this head-to-head battle, we've said it right from the beginning, not good for Florida racing, and as looking at the handle totals, certainly it's turning out not to be beneficial to Calder right now. But again, another issue we have to keep our eyes on and see how that shakes out, because it's not a good situation for Florida racing to have those 2 tracks going head-to-head. All right, we'll take our first break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Jeremy Plonk. Again, a little look back at some of the stakes action from the past weekend, look forward to this coming weekend, so stay tuned. All of that up next.
I'm Mark Cassano. Join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch. We'll inform, analyze, and welcome in the biggest names in racing. So join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch, right here on the OTB Television Network.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at capitalotb.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
I'm Steve Bick, inviting you to join me Sunday, December 15th at the Clubhouse Racebook. I'll be handicapping the day's races live and managing a $500 bankroll for 25 lucky patrons. To be part of the bankroll team, sign up at the Clubhouse Sunday by 1:30. We'll see you then, and let's win together.
Wagering at CapitalOTB.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Capital Bet TV, the fastest and easiest online wagering experience where you can monitor 5 different tracks simultaneously. 2. Capital Bet Express. Its straightforward program layout and interactive handicapping information lets you build your wager quickly and efficiently. And 3. Capital Bet Pro, designed especially for the professional horse player. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
I'm Anthony Mormino. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning means our weekly visit from Jeremy Plonk from HorsePlayerNow.com. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning, Seth. How are you?
Very good. How about you?
Doing great. Getting in the Christmas spirit here today.
Hey, good. That's what we like to hear. And things are winding down on the racing calendar, but still some fun action out there. And also, as we've talked before, you've got the Countdown to the Crown preview coming up. That'll be out, I guess, towards the end of the year, beginning of next year. When we contacted you yesterday, you talked about working on that. So it's that time of year. We're winding things up, but looking forward to 2014. Always fun when we get on the Triple Crown Trail. Let's take a look at some of the action from this past weekend, however. Get some of your thoughts there. And in fact, we do have some 2-year-olds in the mix. And we'll start things out with a 2-year-old who was very interesting last Saturday at Hollywood Park in their Grade 1 Hollywood Futurity. $500,000 purse, mile and a 16th out there. and we're going to watch the number 7 Streaming get it done in the second career start for Bob Baffert. I think the surprise here is a Baffert horse gets away at 10-1, but she wins pretty impressively. Question now is, couple of career starts. I'm not, with the DQ, did horses in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies cement things, or does Streaming throw her hat in the ring for perhaps an Eclipse Award?
Well, she's in the discussion, and she may get on the ballot with this victory, but there wasn't enough beforehand to probably unseat what we've already seen, and it has been a dicey year for the 2-year-old fillies. It's really hard to pinpoint one and just say that they absolutely stand head and shoulders above the rest for champion 2-year-old filly, but had Streaming had something in the Oak Leaf on her resume beforehand, and then added this race in the Starlet at Hollywood, then I think then maybe she could have supplanted what we saw in the Breeders' Cup. But I think this might get her on the ballot and be one of the 3 finalists.
She is going to be an interesting 3-year-old filly next year, though, you would have to think. I mean, Bob Baffert trains, so obviously you're going to get some attention there. Now a couple of career starts. The Maiden Breaker was pretty nice, and then the follow-up was pretty nice. I guess the question mark may be the Hollywood Park surface. Now, it is a synthetic surface, although they say of the synthetic surface, it may be the closest to dirt. But still, there's some question marks, I guess, going forward, although the first 2 have been pretty impressive.
Yeah, she's by Smart Strike, who's a very good synthetic sire, but she's out of a Stormcat mare, and, I think that she'll handle pretty much any footing based on her running style. Horses who have speed on the synthetic, I don't worry about them when they come to the dirt. They're not worried about the kickback and things like that. It's the closers on synthetic that you really have to question their form when they come to the dirt. She's got good natural speed. I mean, she was pretty much dueling all the way on the lead, and the speed ran 1-2 in the Starlet when she beat Taste Like Candy. So a horse like that should transition on pedigree and running style, both fine to dirt, and we'll find out at Santa Anita. She'll be on that path that takes you towards the Santa Anita Oaks, and the Santa Anita Oaks has been a great barometer over the years towards the Kentucky Oaks. So I think the spacing of those races will give her every chance to be a really nice Oaks filly.
All right, let's shift our attention now over to the East Coast on Saturday, and I wanted to pull up a couple of what I call blue-collar stakes performers. These are the kind that are fun to watch. And Jeremy, I said before the break, I talked a little bit about it. I pulled up the Blood Horse article, which looked at the weekend handle from Gulfstream and Calder, and both had nice cards. Claiming Crown at Gulfstream, 3 nice stakes races on Saturday at Calder, but the Gulfstream handle just dwarfed Calder. Gulfstream was about 19,000 on the weekend. Calder about 19 million. Calder about 3 million. And I noted the Daily Racing Form edition that was printed here in upstate New York did not have Calder in there, which I found kind of interesting.
Yeah, there was a lot of racing in South Florida, lest we forget, too. I mean, I know the handle was nothing, but when you talk about, people being divided up in a market, Hialeah's quarter horse meet opened as well. So you had 3 racetracks going within probably a 20-mile radius of each other, all racing the same time on a Saturday afternoon in South Florida. That's not a good situation. And we know that there's wars going on between the Magna and Churchill empires and trying to stomp each other out in that particular market. Look, Gulfstream is just the better brand, and that's the bottom line when it comes to I think Calder's card was actually better than that Claiming Crown card. I thought Calder's card was exceptional on Saturday. And the stakes races were the better stakes races. But the better brand and what is attracting people is Gulfstream, without a doubt. There was some excitement and buzz to it being the Claiming Crown, I guess, and kind of the start of the Gulfstream new meet, Even though they had pretty much year-round racing this year at Gulfstream, a lot of folks weren't paying attention to Gulfstream nationally until this past Saturday.
Yeah, you're exactly right. At the beginning of the traditional meet, attracts a little more attention. And as you say, the stakes races on Saturday at Calder, and that's what had me scratching my head. I'd love to get somebody from the racing forum and see what their decision-making process was to leave Calder out of the mix. Because, that's not a huge effect on handle, I assume, but it would have to be an effect because people up here in this neck of the woods, this part of the country, we bet a lot of money nationally. And so that's certainly, if it's not in the racing forum, I found it interesting because, as you say, some nice stakes races. In fact, let's take a look at one of those blue-collar stakes performers that I wanted to show, the Fred W. Hooper Handicap on Saturday at Calder. It was a Grade 3 event, $100,000 purse, mile and an eighth, We're going to watch the stretch run here. Chaba is going to get it done. And Chaba really kind of got things off last year of the Fred Hooper. Did win the Tropical Park Derby just prior to that. But from the Hooper, won the Harlan's Holiday, and then won the Grade 3 Hal's Hope over at Gulfstream. So Chaba back on track now, coming off an allowance win just prior to this. Now follows up with a nice win Saturday down at Calder in the Hooper, repeating in that race. And Jeremy, as I said, just kind of a nice blue-collar kind of stakes performer.
He is, and you really have to give credit to the owners there, Hollander and Shapoff and the trainer Phil Gleaves, because this is management 101 of a racehorse. I mean, they double enter this horse all the time. If there's two stakes on the card, one on the turf, one on the dirt, they double enter in case the turf race comes off and it's an easier field. I mean, they just manage this horse and put him in the right spot. They don't try to bite off more than they can chew. They don't go looking for a fight somewhere else. They run it home. They bring the guys, the big boys come to their home every once in a while, and they'll take a shot against them in a bigger field. He's just perfectly managed it, and he is successful because of that. His talent, the horse is sound, that he stays well over the years, and he just managed so well. This is a testament of how you really campaign an older horse.
Yeah, this is a 4-year-old. After Saturday, 25 lifetime career starts, 11 wins, over $500,000, as you say, well managed, and those are the kind that are just fun to watch because they race a number of times, they race competitively. And speaking of that, I wanted to bring in one more blue-collar competitor. Get your thoughts on this one. This horse has really hit my radar screen probably over the past 6 months or so. We have Dave Rodman on the show regularly, so we've touched on 8-2 Fast to Catch a number of times. As I say, 6 months or the better part of a year. Saturday at Laurel, another nice little stakes card. A couple of 2-year-old races that were kind of fun, and the Broad Brush. We'll watch the Broad Brush because it is 8-2 Fast to Catch. I talked with Rodman last week, in fact, and we thought 8-2 Fast to Catch may be vulnerable in here because typically he's out on the front end making all the pace, and the last couple of stakes he'd won, he seemed to just outclass the field. This group seemed a little tougher, seemed like there was a little speed. We're watching the stretch run here. Number 10, 8-2 Fast to Catch, comes from off the pace. Nice ride by Forrest Boyce, going a little bit against the grain with 8-2 Fast to Catch. But boy, at 3-5 proves to be very classy. But again, just a blue-collar kind of competitor. This is a 7-year-old, now with 15 lifetime career wins, approaching $1 million. Just a lot of fun to watch this one.
He is. He's a 7-year-old who started his career 1 for 11. So that tells you that, now he's 15 for 46. So that's right. I mean, Tim Keefe, the trainer's done a great job with him over the years. Sheldon Russell was his rider for a long time. Forrest Boyce now is the regular pilot. And like you said, this was a chance to pick against him at 3-5. And I did the same thing in our Horse Player Now Buzz report. I tried to beat him with Gourmet Dinner, thinking that a horse could come from off the pace with the pace set up in this race. They didn't go as fast as it looked on paper, and I think the jockeys all kind of got that same thing in their mind, that they didn't want to go out there and burn with 8-2 Fast to Catch, and it turned out that he ended up being a presser and then went by in the stretch. Just a really cool horse, and these are the kind of horses that I love. I mean, I grew up on the Pennsylvania-Maryland border and followed Maryland racing, West Virginia racing, some of the lower-level racing in Pennsylvania, Penn National growing up and stuff. And those old campaigners were kind of the horses I grew up loving. There was a horse in West Virginia named Onion Juice. He ran from 1982 to 1988. He won 27 of 65. And I just remember every Friday getting a local newspaper that had the entries for Charlestown on Saturday, hoping he was in there. I mean, that's how we got our news back in the 80s, not on the Internet and not through a text alert. And then, and you just got excited to see if those kind of horses were in the Saturday entries. And then the horse that 8-2 Fast to Catch really emulates closest is Little Bold John. The Maryland legend. I mean, he was a horse trained by Jerry Robb. He ran from 1984 to 1992, won 38 races, Little Bold John, and earned almost $2 million. Some folks may remember him. He ran in the Breeders' Cup Mile down at Gulfstream in the late 90s, and he was kind of, I should say, in the late 80s in the Breeders' Cup Mile down there at Gulfstream Park. He was a horse who was just a hard campaigner, and Little Bull John, 8-2 Fast to Catch, they're probably as close as you can do to comparing the two. Just dominators on the Maryland scene. if they put him in a match race, I'd still take Little Bold John, but I think that's maybe nostalgia.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, when you brought that up, that is a name that is a little bit of a blast from the past. But 8 Too Fast to Catch, a lot of fun. And over the past month or so, because of this horse, the trainer Tim Keefe has gotten some press as well. I was unfamiliar with him, but sounds like a nice guy, easy to root for. No positives in the game, but impressive because a couple of the stories right before Thanksgiving, he was taking a little break from the racing game during the Thanksgiving break to go run in an Ironman triathlon for charity. So it just seems like a nice guy, easy to root for as well.
Yeah, it's a little easier to write a check for charity than running the Ironman triathlon, so I don't think I'm going to follow Tim Keefe anytime soon.
Yeah, you make a good point there. I'm with you. Just before we move on from Maryland, I want to ask if you took a look at that 2-year-old stakes race on the card. Again, there was one for the boys, one for the girls. Mamdouha wins for the girls with Kieran McLaughlin training. But you mentioned Jerry Robb in Maryland. He wins the boys version with joint custody. Wonder if you got a chance to look at that and your thoughts on joint custody.
I did. I thought joint custody was a win early kind of 2-year-old that might start fizzling out towards the end of the year as the distances get a little bit longer. But they've done the smart thing and kept him short. And you know, if they go for that Maryland Juvenile Championship at Laurel, which is usually the last weekend of December, right before the new year turns, then he's going to get a chance to route there. And there he might be a little more vulnerable, but he's a good one. I mean, he's done well in the Mid-Atlantic throughout the year. And say Jerry Robb, going back decades, has been outstanding with the young 2-year-olds. And so, you know, I'm not surprised that joint custody's still rocking and rolling at this point in the sprint. But when he starts trying them a little bit longer because they have to go for the money and go for the distance, that's where he might become a little vulnerable. We'll have to see who shows up against him.
Yeah, as I say, a couple of nice stakes for the 2-year-olds on Saturday at Laurel, along with the Broad Brush. Nice stakes action there. Things I've said it for the last couple of weeks. We don't put a bow on things after the Breeders' Cup. There's still plenty of good racing, and part of that is coming up this weekend. Wanted to touch on the Hollywood Futurity with you, and I'm going to go back and pull up some video here from the Hollywood preview. We're going to watch Shared Belief get the job done here, and Shared Belief. A lot of people, and I pull up Gary West's column. I talked about that earlier on the show. Gary West's column on ESPN. He thinks Shared Belief definitely tosses his hat in the ring for an Eclipse with a potential win this weekend. What are your thoughts about Shared Belief coming up on Saturday?
Well, I think he's going to be the horse to beat. You know, we'll have to see who all shows up in the field when the entries come out later today. But, you know, his performance in the preview definitely stamps him as the one to beat. The preview was one turn. Now he'll try to go two. But, you know, Hollendorfer puts his horses on a program. They're going to work every 6 or 7 days. They're going to work like machines, and if they're not doing just right, he'll pull back on them. And so his horses have to be doing well to keep going, and that's why Jerry Hollendorfer strikes at such a high percentage, because if they're not staying on that Hollendorfer program, he'll back off of them. So I would say Shared Belief is going to be ready to run a really big race. I don't know if he can get in the Eclipse Award chase, because I think what you're talking about is you have obviously the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner New Year's Day. Havana ran so well in the Champagne and then also in the Breeders' Cup. And then you've got Honor Code in New York. I don't know how you break into that three-way ballot. You know, I mean, you would have to win this race in stakes record time and do it impressively, I think, to chip away at those three. I think this is a race for number 4. If we're talking about the new college football playoff, you're trying to get in as that 4th team here, maybe with Shared Belief. But Gary West is a really good writer. In fact, he's going to be teaming with me on the Countdown to the Crown preseason magazine that I'm working on. Gary's doing some of our features that we're doing. So look forward to working with him. An old friend, we date way back to the days when he was with the Dallas Morning News, and I was working at Remington in the press box in the early 90s. So Gary and I are good friends for years, and I'm happy to have him as one of my feature writers here for the magazine.
Yeah, I have him regularly to talk about the 2-year-old and the 3-year-old scene, because he gets into it, and he gets into it early with the 2-year-olds. Very an astute observer, and he says in his column, wouldn't have argument with voting against any of the 4, as 3 of those you said, New Year's Day, Havana, and Honor Code. He tosses strong mandate in that and says the Hollywood Futurity at least presents an opportunity for Shared Belief. It's a longer column where he touches on each of them a little bit, but it was interesting. Honor Code, who he says could deserve the title, but then he goes down to talk about the Remsen and how quirky it was. Says the Remsen will have to remain an enigma for a while simply because it was so slow. And then I talked about this earlier on the show. I love this quote. Gary West talking about the Remsen, quote, "It was run like a turf race or a sermon," end quote. And that says it all. I think he hit the nail on the head there. That was a quirky, slow pace in the Remsen, which I think I would tilt towards Honor Code, because I think my argument would just be he's the best 2-year-old. But I think that Remsen and how quirky it was run is going to, make some voters a little bit skittish.
And what we've seen since the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, I think the juvenile form has been flattered and underscored by some of the horses that have run back. So I think that's going to underline a little bit. I think New Year's Day, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, is the most important race. He beat Havana head-to-head. I know it was on his home track, but that's not his fault. And so I just think that that's the way it's going to go. If you ask me to rank them 1 through 4, I'm with you. I would put Honor Code at number 1. And I don't really have any problem with somebody who just says, you know what, the best horse gets the vote. But I think the resume of the Breeders' Cup usually trumps some of the other stuff, and I think that will be what carries the day. If you ask me to pick who's going to win the award, I think it'll be New Year's Day. If you ask me who I would vote for, I'm not an Eclipse Award voter, but if I was, I would vote for Honor Code.
I'm in exactly the same boat. I'm not a voter either, but I go I think voters, a lot of them shut down after the Breeders' Cup, unfortunately, so I think it will be New Year's Day, but I would tilt towards Honor Code. All right, Jeremy, when we conversed yesterday via email, you said you had some live ones that you've been looking at. You're putting again together that Countdown to the Crown magazine that'll come out towards the end of the year, the beginning of the year. So you've been watching the 2-year-olds, certainly, and now with the night school sessions over for the year, you've got plenty of time. You mentioned at least one, and we'll touch on, get a couple of ideas from you, but you said you had one big price at Gulfstream, and I'm wondering, is that Nowhere to Run?
That's it. Nowhere to Run at 33 to 1 on Saturday at Gulfstream.
I got the stretch run here, so let me just intro that. Nowhere to Run is going to be the number 3 horse as people watch. As Jeremy said, 33 to 1. This was the second career start. Michael Dilger, who I think is a name we all have to pay attention to. I think he's an up-and-comer. But Jeremy, I got to know what had you tabbed on this horse, because this was the second career start we're watching here. And again, number 3, Nowhere to Run will win at 33 to 1. But the career debut wasn't much to hang your hat on.
No, it wasn't. But the angle here, and this is one of the things we do when we're researching our 2-year-olds going into that 3-year-old year, is we'll go back and look at the stakes nomination for every major stakes race in the country. And you're going to find a lot of unstarted horses on there, horses that connections think something up. And when they have to nominate for a stakes race, sometimes they may not have even been to the races yet for these 2-year-old stakes. But they're going to put up the nomination money. Dilger nominated 2 horses to the Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland. One was Mexicoma. The other was Nowhere to Run. Mexicoma, of course, was sold privately and ended up going to Team Valor and out to the Breeders' Cup. But the other horse that he threw into the hat for a Grade 1 stakes before they ever debuted was Nowhere to Run. It tells me they thought something of the horse. They ran short in the first race. Then they got to go long at Gulfstream in the second career start. They obviously thought the horse was a player in a 2-turn mile and a 16th polytrack race potentially going back. So that's how we kind of uncovered this one. 33 to 1, a horse that if you're looking ahead of time, and these are the kind of horses we're projecting out, and it doesn't help the magazine reader, obviously, because we're not publishing yet. But we're going back and Del Mar Futurity horses who were nominated to races at Del Mar early in the year. They may never even started at 2, but when these horses come back on the work tab now and train towards a potential career debut over the winter, these are horses that were well fought and well intended earlier in their careers. So that's one of the angles that we look at in trying to unearth some of these horses that really have no running lines yet to look at.
I like that, and I have to admit, I have never thought of that before, but the nomination list as a handicapping angle, that is very clever. And before we let you go, maybe 1 or 2 others folks should pay attention to?
I've got a couple that horses that I want you to put on your list. There's a horse John Sadler has out in California named Candy Boy. John Sadler's stable has been a little bit quiet the past couple of years with these younger horses. He's loaded this year. I think he's going to have a big Santa Anita meet. And this horse, Candy Boy, was one of those horses who kind of nibbled, ran a couple seconds in third, and then had a blowout victory around 2 turns to break his maiden. Those kind of horses usually pair up and run back really good. You know, the light bulb has gone off on him. I call it the nibbler breaks out angle. I'm looking for Candy Boy to have a really nice winner for John Sadler. And then there's a couple horses down in Florida that from Churchill Downs. Chaz's Legacy for Patrick Byrne. He's not the more fancy Patrick Byrne horse from Churchill Down. Almost Famous got all the headlines at that meet. But I think Chaz's Legacy is going to be the best horse for Byrne down in Florida. Maybe a take charge Indy kind of horse who becomes a Florida Derby contender. And another one for Dale Romans. Watch for this horse named Doubling Up. Doubling Up ran 1 time at Churchill Downs. He broke bad. He only split the field and ran 6th coming on towards the end in a sprint race. but he's from that tremendous Weekend Surprise family. His third dam is Weekend Surprise. It goes back to Summer Squall, Charismatic, all those wonderful racehorses. This horse has the pedigree to go long. Doubling Up, owned by Donegal Racing, the Patio Prado group, and you know that they are aiming for the Derby run. I think Doubling Up is a horse for Dale Romans. With his running style, he may not be perfect for Gulfstream until they hit those 1 1/8 races, but a 1 1/8 maiden race, if he gets one around 2 turns, I think Doubling Up is a horse to circle and watch this winter at Gulfstream.
Okay, and hopefully we can get another 33-1 out of one of those to get us going. All right, Jeremy, certainly appreciate the visit this morning, as always, and the 3 horses for us to keep an eye on. We certainly will. Jeremy, again, thanks for the visit. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, and Merry Christmas to all.
Thanks, Jeremy Plonk from HorsePlayerNow.com. All right, we'll take our next break. When we come back, James Hasty from the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. Stay tuned.
Programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Cassano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
This is Steve Beck. Join me Tuesday through Saturday here on OTB TV for At the Races, my Sirius XM daily news magazine of the thoroughbred industry. Handicapping, interviews, analysis, everything you could want. 6 a.m. OTB TV.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Wednesday morning. We're reaching out to James Hasty. He's out at the University of Arizona Symposium, so we'll keep giving him a try. In the meantime, some more news and notes from the past week. I pulled up the Watchmaker Watch, the weekly divisional ratings. You've heard me quote those before. It's interesting. It's one man's opinion of the leaders in the various divisions. But Mike Watchmaker, obviously an astute observer of the game, and I think you look down the lists, you're going to agree with most of the thoughts he has. And I just brought it up because I wanted to see what he did as far as the 2-year-old fillies after streaming ran so well last weekend at Hollywood. And in fact, Mike Watchmaker had a column subsequent to that Hollywood starlet that said streaming is a logical contender now for the 2-year-old filly Eclipse, given the division seemed to be a little bit up in the air, the disqualification in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile filly. So there was, some question marks there, perhaps, and because of that, again, the division was in a little bit of flux. Now, given that and how well streaming did on the weekend, Watchmaker writes the column that says, she's in the mix. Well, given that, I wanted to see what Watchmaker did in the 2-year-old filly division. Well, he has her in third behind the 2 horses in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile filly. He's got She's a Tiger on top. His note seems the most consistent of the bunch. Ria Antonio in second. His note there, now must confirm her surprising BC effort. And then in third, new to his list, is streaming. His note did make a nice run in the Hollywood starlet. So even though he made the argument that she's a contender, he only has her in third. behind the two horses, the two-year-old fillies who were in the first couple of slots in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly, and just taking an overall look at where his other divisions are. Wise Dan is his older male number one, Mucho Macho Man in second, Game On Dude third. And again, it's one man's opinion. I think some people might juggle those up, but I also think a lot of people are going to agree exactly with that. Game On Dude, the way the year ended for him, third's probably second. With Mucho Macho Man, you could see either one of those moving. And in fact, if it's older male, you might make a case that one or the other could be on top of Wise Dan because of his turf record. That division will be interesting to see how it shakes out in the Eclipse Awards. But I think certainly those top three are where everybody is thinking. Older females, Royal Delta, Dank, and Tisma Sue. I think Royal Delta, when it comes to the Eclipse Awards, is going to be clearly the horse that is going to attract the most attention. The 3-year-old males, he's got Will Take Charge on top, Orb, then Palace, Malice, Oxbow fourth. Again, one man's opinion, but I think this one man is similar to many men. I think Will Take Charge, when it comes to the Eclipse Award, is going to be a strong vote getter, a clear favorite. Orb, having won the Kentucky Derby, I may be tempted to flip-flop Orb and Palace Malice here, but again, once it gets past that top pick, you can make an argument in various directions. It's not going to make a difference as far as the Eclipse Award. 3-year-old females, Beholder over Princess of Silmar, Close Hatches third. I think definitely that's the way it's going to go in the Eclipse Awards. That's going to be interesting just to see how close it is, how close Beholder and Princess of Silmar are. I think Beholder is going to be a pretty significant winner given the way she closed out the season. And I've said this before. After the Alabama, I think a lot of us were willing to say Princess of Silmar had it locked up. But at that point, Beholder hadn't even started the comeback. And it was hard to foresee that. But once the comeback started, she wound up her season so impressively. And with the win in the Breeders' Cup, Beholder looks like the clear leader in the 3-year-old filly division, and seems a lock for the Eclipse. But it will be interesting to see how close that vote is, because Princess of Silmar will certainly attract some attention. 2-year-old males, Watchmaker has it New Year's Day, Havana, Honor Code, Cairo Prince. As I said earlier, I would have trouble pulling the trigger for New Year's Day. I don't think, excuse me, it was a super campaign, a championship campaign that you could really become super excited about. But I think a lot of people are going to look at that Breeders' Cup Juvenile race, and that's going to be the exclamation point on the year for them. Havana, Honor Code, Cairo Prince, all logical contenders. He has strong mandate down in the 5th spot. So those are horses that we had mentioned before. In his number 8 spot is Shared Belief. Be interesting to see if Shared Belief wins this week, where Watchmaker puts him next week. Again, the 2-year-old filly, She's a Tiger, Ria Antonio in streaming. Going down to the turf males, it's Wise Dan, Magician, Point of Entry. I think Wise Dan has a lock on that division. Turf females, Dank, The Fugue, and Romantica. That's a division that's maybe a little bit in flux. That division, I think when the votes come out, there will be some separation there, and that division will be a little bit interesting, as will the Sprinter division. Sprinter, Watchmaker has it Points Off the Bench, Sahara Sky, and Secret Circle, Golden Sense in 4th. I think both of those, Turf Female and Sprinter, are going to be kind of interesting to see when the votes actually shake out how things do work for an Eclipse Award. Other news over the past few days, article from the LA Times, Bill Dwyer, who covers horse racing and has for many years out in Southern California for the Los Angeles Times. Article just within the past couple of days. Headline, Horse Racing has problems, but trainer Bob Baffert isn't one of them. Subheadline, State Racing Board found no wrongdoing by Bob Baffert in the deaths of 7 horses, but criticism, doubt remain. It's time to move on, says Bill Dwyer. And it is kind of interesting that the report came out last week or the week before looking into those 7 equine deaths out of the Baffert barn and exonerated him, but did so in wording that just, and I said it at the time, left not doubt necessarily, but certainly it wasn't kind of the clear statement. You read it one way and exonerated him completely, but again, there just seemed to be some caveats thrown in that were kind of strange. And Dwyer makes those comments, but says, Baffert's good for the game. He's a guy who seems to care for his horses, and so let's take the state report at its face value and just move on from this incident. Again, that was in the LA Times, 3, 4, 5 days ago. I think I still have it linked on Equidaily, probably down in the middle column now. It's Bill Dwyer from the LA Times article about Baffert. If it's not still on Equidaily, I'm sure you can pick it up if you go over to the LA Times. Also coming out of New Jersey, this is kind of interesting. They've obviously, like a lot of states that don't have slots, have been chasing slots and to no avail with the casino industry in New Jersey. Clearly there's some pushback. Governor Christie has tilted in favor of the casino industry down there and protected them, and there has been no slots for racetracks down there. But now there's some legislation being proposed to allow instant racing. Instant racing, if you're not familiar, instant racing is what kind of helped Oaklawn rebound. They look like slot machines, and in fact, when I went down to Oaklawn and visited Oaklawn, they seem to operate like slot machines. Now, they describe these instant racing machines as historical racing. You're looking at old races, and you can look at old past performances, but any of the identifying factors are out of there, and somehow you handicap. I'm going to have to go back to one of these instant racing outfits, because when I was there at Oaklawn, there was no handicapping past performances. It's essentially a slot machine with a little postage stamp sized video of an old race that you could almost, it took me a minute to figure out what was going on, but somehow the result of the slot machine is based on the top 3 finishers in this race, but there was no thought or handicapping involved. They're essentially slot machines. They're not presented that way, and that's how they kind of get around things. I don't have any argument with them. I'm not trying to scuttle the whole idea, but I mean, let's call it what it is. But right now there is proposed legislation to get some instant racing machines at New Jersey racetracks. That will be interesting to see what happens, because again, they got the instant racing machines down at Oaklawn. That helped them make a nice rebound down there. So no slot machines at the racetracks in New Jersey. They're now trying to, and the New Jersey State Senate Committee has proposed some legislation that will get instant racing there. So we'll keep our eyes on that moving forward. All right, I'm going to take the last break of the hour. When we come back, we'll continue. Still try to reach out to James Hasty of the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. So stay tuned. Racing Across America continues.
I'm Jeff Carl. Join me Saturdays and Sundays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the weekend in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekends at 9, only here on the OTB TV network.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. With a newly designed and engineered internet wagering platform, enhanced video streaming, additional funding options, and 3 new individual wagering opportunities, CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. Combine that with our all-new mobile website. You have 2 of the most powerful, innovative, and advanced wagering platforms available today. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Hey, race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook and get in the game. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, fantastic food and drinks, an amazing Vegas-style atmosphere with seating for nearly 900 of your closest friends. Conveniently located at 711 Central Avenue, right off Exit 5 of I-90 in Albany, the Clubhouse Racebook is the better choice.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
I'm Steve Bick, inviting you to join me Sunday, December 15th at the Clubhouse Racebook. I'll be handicapping the day's races live and managing a $500 bankroll for 25 lucky patrons. To be part of the bankroll team, sign up at the Clubhouse Sunday by 1:30. We'll see you then, and let's win together.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Seth Merwin here, and still reaching out to James Hasty. Haven't had success so far, but if we don't get him today, we will get him down the road. Right now, I'm going to pull up a little video. This was recently posted to the America's Best Racing website. We talked just a moment ago about Wise Dan being at the head of the class, certainly for the turf runners this year, perhaps for the older males as well. They have a nice little compilation of races by Wise Dan this year, again on the America's Best Racing website, followhorseracing.com. Pulled this video off. Nice, kind of a stirring follow-up to the year that Wise Dan put together. They don't show his loss. I did notice that, but it's an uplifting video. So compilation of the nice wins by Wise Dan. Again, it lasts about a couple of minutes. We'll take a look at that. When we come back, I'll wrap up the show. Stay tuned.
Wise Dan returns to the races like a champion. It is Wise Dan coming down to the wire clear from Optimizer in second. The horse of the year's chosen Wise Dan, and Jose Lezcano did it. All out down the outside, but Wise Dan has got the gap, and now he's gone clear by a length and a half. Battling on the outside, but it's the reigning horse of the year, Wise Dan, the first horse ever to win 2 Firecracker handicap.
Approval in a full-out drive in second. Johnny hasn't moved on Wise Dan. Wise Dan, here he is, the titan of the turf, the sensational Wise Dan.
Now they're on even terms, and now it is Wise Dan who's taken the lead. Wise Dan in front and pulling away as they come down to the finish. The heart of a champion on the wire by a length.
Unstoppable, a horse of the year performance.
Outside of Olympic Glory, and there's Silencio is coming on too, but here's Wise Dan alongside of Approval. Silencio coming up the fence. Wise Dan's got him. Wise Dan, brilliant in the mile.
Best Racing. I'm back. That was, again, Wise Dan. It was on the America's Best Racing website, followhorseracing.com. They have some nice videos up there occasionally, and this was put up within the past couple of days. Again, just a highlight of the season of the horse that is the presumed champion, I think safely presumed champion this year. Just want to note, again, we talked a little bit about it, obviously, on the Handicappers Report earlier, but it is opening day for the inner track at Aqueduct. The inner track meet kicks off and continues probably through March sometime. Obviously, the move from the inner track to the main track at Aqueduct at the end of the season depends a little bit on Mother Nature, but you can expect probably March sometime they'll make the move back. So the long winter haul has begun. Just to give you an idea of what to expect over this inner track meet, there will be 3 graded stakes races for 3-year-olds that have points attached to them, the Kentucky Derby point system. So we'll have to keep our eyes on those. Kicks off fairly early in the season. The Grade 2, $200,000 Jerome, that's going to be run on January 4th. That's certainly interesting placement now on the calendar. The Jerome used to be much later in the year, but I think they've made a crafty decision. Points attached to the Kentucky Derby early in the season. That could attract a nice field there on January 4th. The Jerome, a Grade 2 event. The Grade 3, $250,000 Withers is February 1st, and then the Grade 3 $500,000 Gotham on March 1st. Again, there are points there. All of those run on the inner track, but it could be some very interesting racing for the 3-year-olds, given, again, some decent purse money and some potential points on the Kentucky Derby trail. Also, just to give you ideas of jocks to watch out for, Irad Ortiz, his brother Jose, were the top jockeys at last winter's meet. I think they're going to be interesting to keep your eyes on as well. According to Dave Grenig in his column in the Racing Forum previewing the meet, he also tosses in Cornelio Velasquez, Junior Alvarado, David Cohen, Rajiv Murat as other jockeys to watch out for, Manuel Franco and Emmanuel Esquivel as apprentices to watch. I would also throw in Chucky Lopez. I think you absolutely have to watch him on the intertrack. Speed is so dangerous, and that is his MO. He comes out of the gate and says, catch me if you can, and that's very potent and very dangerous on the Aqueduct Inner Strip. On the trainer side, all the usual suspects. Rudy Rodriguez and David Jacobson were the leading trainers last year, certainly going to be up there contending again this year as well. So again, Intertrack opens today. There are some thoughts to keep in mind as we move forward. Just once again to toss out some of the promos here at the Clubhouse Racebook and via the website, Bet 50, Get 50. If you don't have a Capital Bets account currently, sign up now. Get your Capital Bets wagering account, Bet 50 into the account. As soon as you do that, Capital OTB throws in another $50. Lucky Saturdays, Saturday, December 14th, 21st, and 28th. Should be fun. Come on down here. Toss your name in for drawings that will be held at the top of each hour at 1, 2, 3, and 4 p.m. 2 folks will be selected at each drawing. One gets to go into the cash cube. As much money, funny money, as you can pull in. You then get to bet on the next race at Aqueduct with either a win, place, or show bet. That should be a lot of fun. The other winner gets to spin the big wheel. There's merchandise. There's betting vouchers on there. Should be fun afternoon. As I said, I just want to come down and watch the folks in the cash cube pull down the money. Live bankroll on Sunday, December 15th, right here at the Clubhouse Racebook. That's with my partner from Loose on the Lead, Steve Bick, also the host of Sirius and XM's At the Races. $500 bankroll. 25 patrons will be selected randomly to participate. Come on down here Sunday, December 15th, and the very next day, Monday, December 16th, our next night of boxing down here at the Clubhouse Racebook. The word is that it's been very entertaining the times we've done it before. You come down, $15 general admission. Seems like there's a full house every time. Local boxing clubs, very entertaining. So if you're a boxing fan, this coming Monday night, December 16th, doors open at 5:30, first bout at 6:30. Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. That'll wrap things up for Racing Across America for this Wednesday morning. We're every Monday through Friday from 10 to 11 a.m. 9 to 10 a.m. is the Handicappers Report. We were in earlier. Hopefully we gave you some good advice. So cash some tickets this afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.